Morning, darling.
Morning, sweetheart.
Oh, you don't like that. Hello, Internet. I'm Ren, and today I want to talk about Season 2, Episode 7 of Doctor Who, Wish World. This is the penultimate episode for this season and is part of a two-part season finale, and I have mixed feelings about it. I think there were some really strong elements of creepy, twisty, atmospheric sci-fi, and this version of the Ronnie is a lot of fun as a villain. Unfortunately, the latter half of the episode really loses momentum, and there's a lot structurally about it that doesn't make sense and makes it feel like it doesn't quite go far enough in terms of the satire it's trying to create and its premise. But that's all I can really say without spoilers, so let's get into it. This is going to be another low-key, unscripted review, so it's just me, my notes, and my hyperfixation while we break down this episode. And of course, this video will contain spoilers for Doctor Who up to this point. You have been warned. The episode starts with a cold open where the Ronnie steals a baby.
Because I will be taking little baby. Dankeschön.
A baby that happens to be the seventh son of a seventh son of a seventh son.
You were born lucky, seventh son of a seventh son. With 7 sons of your own.
Which is significant, I guess. And she turns the family into flowers and various birds. Which is a choice? It's a bit fairy tale. Meanwhile, in the present day, after the events of Interstellar Song Contest, the Doctor and Belinda wake up in bed on May 23rd as a married couple in London.
Oh, this is nice. You and me. We'll stay here forever.
Stay.
With a young daughter who just so happens to be Poppy from Space Babies. But that's not the only way that reality is strangely altered, because they and everyone else have no recollection of their real lives or the real world.
I ask you, how can anyone doubt this glorious world that we live in?
And they're living in some kind of artifice that is bursting at the seams with weirdness. There's Conrad on television as some kind of omnipresent storyteller.
Now, it's time for today's story. Doctor Who and the Deadly Wish.
Giant skeleton things wandering around, cups that periodically fall through tables, thought police that arrest you for having doubts about this peculiar world, and some latent homophobia and ableism.
You're a beautiful man. What's that supposed to mean?
The Doctor is John Smithing it.
Are you called the Doctor?
My name is John Smith.
And doubts abound when he meets Ruby, who Belinda immediately calls the police on.
Hello? I have someone expressing doubt.
And has no idea who he is, as he works for Kate at an insurance company.
Cutting it fine. Another 2 minutes and you'd have been late.
Happy morning, Unified National Insurance Team.
He struggles to fit in the weird 50s trad wife Stepford nightmare world.
I wonder who she is.
Meanwhile, in the Bone Palace, which is a very cool practical set design, the Ronnie has the lesser Ronnie, Mrs. Flood, looking after Conrad and his needs.
Let's keep the boy happy. Is that a salad or a sandwich? Sandwich, obviously.
And doing her other busy work. I kind of love the little kitchen in the palace. It's very cute. Mrs. Flood is not enjoying her demotion and spends a lot of time seething and muttering under her breath.
Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Can I cut your toenails, ma'am?
She checks on Conrad, who seems to be locked up with the baby.
Hey, it's been ages.
I'm sorry, sweetheart. You know the mistress.
Which we learn is a member of the Pantheon via the usual horrifying arpeggio laugh.
All he does is chuckle.
We later find out that the baby is
Desiderium, god of wishes.
So I guess that's how she transformed the family, by making wishes with the baby. And we understand that Conrad and the baby are somehow maintaining this strange planet through a wish that Conrad made.
He's so tiny. He sustains this entire world.
But it seems to be a very active mental process.
It's such a lot of hard work. All the thinking.
Because he mentions that when he forgets the weather, South Africa floods. That night, the Doctor gets a message from Rogue on his TV, which is very exciting.
This whole dimension is sliding into the pit. I don't know if I'm going to survive. Thank you for that, you know?
Rogue tries to help him remember.
I can only send you one warning, and this is going to sound strange, but listen to me.
And tells him that
Tables don't do that.
But more importantly, he also tells him,
I miss you. Well, more than that, I love you.
I need Rogue to come back next episode. It is not a want, BBC, it is a need. After his little chat with Rogue, the Doctor's doubts go into overdrive. He starts testing the cups.
How do they slip?
It's just the way of the world, John. They always have, and they always will. Now stop.
And freaking out.
He said, tables don't do that. And I thought he's right.
And Belinda turns on him.
Hello? It's my husband. He's having doubts.
And calls the thought police.
I wasn't doubting anything, I just asked. I had a question. I had a good question, that's all.
Only to then be herself arrested for her own doubts.
You recognized your husband's doubt because you've been expressing doubt yourself.
Since she's been troubled by the fact that she couldn't remember how long she was in labor with Poppy. They're taken to the palace, and the Rani confronts the Doctor.
Looking at that memory. What about this? It's called the Seal of Rassilon.
And tries to make him remember.
Which led to the Vindicator. Do you remember?
Because it turns out his doubts are the goal.
You cannot wish a whole world into existence.
Exactly. Because you have doubts.
She's trying to get him to doubt this artificial world so that it tears apart the very fabric of reality.
Ordinary doubt cracks open the world, and a Time Lord's doubt rips open the structure of reality itself.
And allows her to reach into this under reality.
Because once reality is broken, a scale as vast as this, I can see underneath.
And release Omega. Another legacy Doctor Who villain.
The first Time Lord, the creator of the Time Lords, the greatest and most terrifying Time Lord.
Okay. We get a lot of exposition here.
Because this isn't just exposition, Doctor.
And we find out that the palace is a fixed point.
The palace exists as a fixed point. It's safe.
And so she basically tosses the Doctor out of it. And as he's falling, he says,
Poppy is real! Do you know what that means?
which is interesting. Belinda is also kicked out of the palace
Get rid of the wife. Take her across the threshold.
and disappears as soon as she crosses the threshold. Meanwhile, Shirley and Ruby watch from below as London begins to disintegrate around them. They had been working on a plan involving a unit pad that somehow crossed over into this reality.
And if this thing can trace the signal, what if we can block it?
Because since Conrad doesn't see disabled people due to his own internalized bias,
This is how we live. The disabled, the dispossessed.
he wasn't as able to control their thoughts.
We live outside the world, so we can see it better.
And as a result, they were more aware of the cracks in the universe.
I think these things are like fossils.
It all comes down to Conrad Clark.
This storyline is really fun, and I do like the disability representation. Although I did notice something problematic when Shirley tells Ruby,
Yeah, but you're different from us, like, you seem very non-disabled to me.
invisible disabilities exist and are in fact very common. And it is troubling as one of the most basic levels of disability stigma and ignorance, assuming that you can tell by looking at someone if they're disabled. And considering Ruby has PTSD, she is disabled. She has a disability. It's PTSD. So, yeah. But anyway, the world continues falling apart. And that's where the episode ends, with a good old to be continued. So I have some thoughts. First, I'm going to talk about some of the good. I was so excited to see Rogue again. I love him. I love his chemistry with the Doctor.
It's not my first shed.
Oh my god!
I love that he said, I love you.
More than that.
He better be in the finale. And if he's not, then I need another season of Shooty's Doctor, and I need Rogue to return. Give it to me, BBC, as a treat. Life's hard. The episode has lots of fun Easter eggs like the Seal of Rassilon,
Rassilon was the president eternal of the Time Lords. Anything? No, nothing.
and Archie Punjabi is amazing as the Rani. She is so much fun. She is just chewing the scenery.
Farewell to London!
Every scene she's in, she's a scene stealer.
The tragedy is, we were never enemies.
Honestly, my biggest complaint about her is we don't get enough of her in this episode, and I think a lot of her time is just wasted on spewing exposition.
We are the last Time Lord and the last Time Lady from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Casturba.
When I'd like to see her do more. The dynamic with Mrs. Flood is a lot of fun, if a bit predictable, because of course we know Mrs. Flood is not going to continue to lie down and take this. She is also the Rani.
We are both the Rani.
So I am interested to see if she betrays her. I do like the idea of this flawed alternate reality that is based on one cishet white guy's interpretation and ideal imagination of the world.
Got so much to do. There's the laundry and shopping.
So we do get this weird trad wife 50s situation where it's modern but not.
You know her part in life. Good little girl, then good little wife, then good little mother.
And of course, it's by default homophobic and ableist because Conrad doesn't have any empathy and doesn't really think about or identify with those people.
We can see when things don't make sense. Like, we haven't got a penny, but I've got this wheelchair. State of the art.
I do think one flaw in this episode is not including some level of racism.
And the weather's going to be nice. All across England. It's nice in France and Africa.
And it doesn't even have to be like overt, because I do think that while Conrad gives off very racist vibes,
Now have a look at some pictures of India.
he's the kind of person who, if you asked him if he's racist, would vehemently insist that he isn't. And so I think we could have seen that manifest in some weird biases and assumptions, or even just some unintentional but visible and noticeable white supremacy, something like that. I think it would have added a bit more of an edge, and also another axis of conflict with the Doctor and his principles. But I think the way that it's sort of glossed over and ignored ultimately robs the satire of more complexity and makes it less believable. And there's other inconsistencies, like we get the implication that women shouldn't work in this society and that it's frowned upon, which does make sense with Conrad's ideology.
If you two got together, she wouldn't have to work. It's undignified. You'd be saving her.
But then why is Kate Lethbridge Stewart still in charge? Also, why is Kate Lethbridge Stewart still around? You would think he'd have more beef with her and would somehow make her suffer or be generally miserable. And in the same vein, it's really weird that Ruby's around and that she's not altered beyond having her memory wiped like everyone else.
I don't know why or how, but Conrad Clark is a monster.
Like, it just seems kind of like an oversight on Conrad's part. See, I'm trying to talk about the good stuff, but I do keep getting off track because I think this episode has problems. But that said, I do like the idea of the system not seeing marginalized people and that ultimately creating a space where they're underestimated and able to fight back with advantages like the element of surprise.
We don't just sit here all day complaining. We've got plans.
I also really enjoy the unsettling and creepy atmosphere that this episode creates, particularly with regards to the idea that you're always being watched and policed by your peers, and that someone could call these freaky thought police on you at any time.
It's my daughter. She's been expressing doubts. I think you need to come and take her away.
Because I bet due process isn't exactly robust in Conrad's world. This episode clearly cost a lot of money. The sets look great. The costuming is wonderful. It looks amazing. And I really did like the score in this episode, particularly for the end of the world. It was just very fitting and created a great sense of atmosphere, and I liked it. Now on to some more of the problems. We've already talked about some issues I have with this episode. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of John Smith episodes. I think they tend to be pretty hit or miss, but hey, at least the Doctor isn't racist and terrorizing his companion in this one. I really love Ruby, and while I am glad she was in this episode because it's always nice to see Millie Gibson, I do think it left Belinda without much to do. And so instead, they go really hard in the other direction where she drinks the Kool-Aid, and it doesn't really delve into her betrayal of the Doctor enough, not her motivation for why she does it.
Dr. Martin was in me, and I really liked it.
Or the emotional impact of her doing it.
I'm sorry, Mel.
I'm sorry I reported you.
It's my fault.
Although parts of her story are kind of reminiscent to Donna in The Silence in the Library, with her creepy imaginary children.
You haven't got a child. Don't you dare say that.
They're fictions. I'm sorry, but now that you understand that, you won't be able to keep a hold. They are sustained only by your belief.
So it's not that it was bad, I just wish that there was more for her to do, and I hope we get to see her do more in the second half. I think it would be really fun if she teams up with Ruby and they get to know each other. I also feel like Mel was really underutilized in this episode, so I hope she has more to contribute to the finale as well. Another big problem with the episode is it feels like Conrad's motivations are kind of paper thin and inconsistent.
Is it okay out there?
Based on what we saw in Lucky Day, his version of reality doesn't make a ton of sense. Parts of it do, but I would kind of expect it to be a little bit more modern in some ways. And I think that if he did go the trad values route, he would go further in that direction. And so it kind of just leaves us feeling like we don't really know that much about Conrad, or why he's deciding to do this, or why the world looks the way it does through his eyes. That combined with all of the other issues with his interpretation of the world and the satire related to that just leaves the episode feeling a bit hollow. Although with his weird interactions with the baby, I hope we get to see another side of Conrad in the second half of the finale. I think the Omega reveal is way too much, and it really crowds the episode. I think the Ronnie's good enough as a villain in her own right that we really didn't need this. If she was going to team up with anyone, it would make sense for it to be the Master. And I think that would have felt a lot less out of left field, especially for viewers who aren't really involved with Classic Who. And I think that if we had streamlined that and maybe had her motivation be more science-based, since her character has historically been a mad scientist, that would have been more enjoyable to watch. Basically, I think this episode took some really big swings, and the premise was really solid, but the execution left a bit to be desired. And now on to a couple of theories for the next episode. I do think that Poppy is going to turn out to be Susan's mother, and that we'll find out that Susan is a time lady, and that's why she doesn't look like her or this particular incarnation of the Doctor.
I do also wonder if Susan Triad is going to have something to do with the Doctor's granddaughter Susan returning, or if she is, in fact, our Susan, because they did bring her back in this episode after we haven't seen her all season, and that can't be a coincidence.
I think the Master could still show this season, but at this point with the Omega reveal, I hope that he doesn't. I do think, and frankly hope, that this finale will be the end of the Pantheon. Listen, it's been a good run, it's a lot of fun, but everything keeps coming back to them, and I just think they're so silly and out there, and there are kind of better Doctor Who concepts to explore, but, it's been a good time. I just think 2 seasons of it is probably enough. I think Mrs. Flood is definitely going to betray the Ronnie and help the Doctor simply out of spite, because spite seems to be one of her primary operating principles. I do wish she was more science-y, but hey. And finally, the ultimate question of will the Doctor regenerate? I'm leaning towards no, because I feel like there would have been more build-up and fanfare about it, and I really, really hope that's the case, because I'm just not ready for him to go. I need at least 1 or 2 more seasons with him. It would just feel too rushed, and it feels like he's just finally hit his stride. So I hope that doesn't happen. I hope he doesn't regenerate. But that's all I have for you for now. What did you think of this episode? Are you a fan of this version of the Ronnie? Did you like the Omega reveal? And what do you think will happen next episode? Will the Ronnie betray the Ronnie? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos. See you next time. Wiedersehen.